Hey everyone, and welcome to Vibe Check. My name is Megan. I am a healer and a writer here to offer you different perspective to see this world in a different way, to be able to help increase your vibration to get you to where you want to go. While I was in the bathtub this morning after a super junky sleep, I was doing a meditation and some self Reiki, and it made the thought popped into my head about how many different levels of spiritual awakening there are. And how really in the level that I'm in now, or the era that I feel like I'm in now with my spiritual awakening, how many there still are to come, and how the spiritual and conscious journey probably is never really done. And just gauging where you are at your journey based on the level of awakening. And sometimes it can be really difficult for us to see this in our own selves. Oh man, this is the tree. The tree haircut truck goes by getting ready for lunch. I'm so excited for them to trim our trees in front of our house that protect us so well. New ones. Side quest that when we if we can't establish where we are in ourselves with our growth and with our conscious patterning and with our spiritual awakening, it can actually be really easy to see where other people are in their spiritual awakening that has us bring an awareness to where we are with things, which in itself is a level of spiritual awakening, which feels a little meta. I think it's really important to know that this is my perspective as a healer. This is what I recognize and see in a pattern in the people around me and in my experience. It's also not a hierarchy. I don't think spiritual awakening starts at level 1 and then moves to level 10. And when you reach level 10, like that's it, you're done. You get angel wings or you die, whatever it may be, crossover. I think that people experience their spiritual awakenings in a multitude of different ways. Maybe you'll get 4 or 5 of these all in the same week, which it probably feels like with the Mercury retrograde we just had, which I usually love, but it was a doozy of a Mercury retrograde this time. Maybe these are spaced out between years. Maybe you'll go years, months, weeks between each phase of life. Maybe it comes with significant life events. Whatever it may be, that these levels of spiritual awakening or awareness or your mm, capacity of consciousness changes. And in my own personal journey, I've recognized how my capabilities elevate, how my awareness changes, how I shift and grow, and how really you're in this evolution. And this is something that I learned from my meditation teacher, who I believe learned it from Deepak Chopra, who's an incredible meditation teacher who and now I'm like, who my therapist threw back in my face one time in a session, very gently, of course. But I talk a lot about like this spiral staircase and about how we're always moving. It feels like we're just going around in circles. Great, we're in the same pattern over and over again. We keep saying we're in the same viewpoint, like, oh, great, this is happening again. Great, like, why? Why is this happening to me again? But that with each level of awareness and each level of spiritual awakening and each level of consciousness, that we are seeing it, we're moving up the spiral staircase and we're actually getting a different view. We can see it from a different way, which brings like is the whole journey of life, being able to go up this tower, being able to see life from this way of, yes, we may be repeating situations, we may be repeating patterns, but are we going into it with a different awareness, and are we reacting in a different way, and are we feeling personally like we're doing better each time when we're in it? Are we learning our lesson, whatever it may be? And with spiritual awakening, I think it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. This isn't, I think, with all spirituality, that there isn't hard and fast rules with everything. There are only my own personal boundaries and respect that I have for the spirituality and the process of unfolding with that. That there's this whole psychosomatic component of like nervous system and then the psychology behind it versus that's tied into your subconscious awareness, it's tied into your conscious patterns and like behavior output versus your emotional body versus your energetic body. And it's really intertwined, and it can be this very complicated web for us to kind of unpack, which made me think about these different levels of spiritual awareness and spiritual awakening. And if we were to see them from this perspective and maybe see, like, oh, okay, like I've gone through that. This is something that I look forward to. Oh, I see this in somebody else. This makes sense. Like, oh, I wonder if I'm going. Maybe this is what really it all comes down to. I want to share with you the different levels of spiritual awakening that I've experienced so that you might find an answer to what's going on in your life. Because right now I feel like there's a huge call for a lot of us to step into leadership, into this new era, into this like new energetic world order, like this the astrology shifting. There's a lot of energetic healers that are coming into this whole other level of life, seeing women being able to hold wealth and manifest in capacity that we've never been able to do before. That if we had maybe just some awareness around what's going on, we might feel like, okay, maybe this is working for us. And that's something that's really important to me. So I think one of the first levels of your spiritual awareness that you come into is recognizing that you have voices in your head, that there is a critic or your ego, and there is your higher self or your intuition is the one of the most basic ones. And I think not everybody has this awareness of the different voices in our head, not knowing that there's two, that we may be familiar with the terms ego and the terms of higher self, but what does that look like within us? That we can recognize that anything that's negative in a thought pattern, um in a thought pattern, in thoughts, is probably most likely almost all the time your ego. And then anything that feels very loving and compassionate and quiet and illogical is your higher self or your intuition. And when you kind of step into this awareness, like, oh man, like there are different thoughts in my head. It's like, oh man, I'm really not kind to myself sometimes. Or like, fuck yeah, I like did awesome there. And this makes sense. And this really, like, I just keep thinking about doing this thing and it feels so important. And that's your higher self talking versus like oh man, I'm such a failure. I'm doing all these things. Nothing's working is your ego. And that's one level of spiritual awakening, is even recognizing that there's two different voices in your head. But to expand from that, there's also the spiritual awakening that I think that comes in, like there's 4 or 5 different voices in your head. Because not only do you have your ego and your inner critic, that you also have this higher self and your intuition that's connected to a spiritual realm, but then you also have this inner child and this inner teenager and this inner parent, and everybody's battling to be the loudest and to be heard. And even if you're not aware of what you're thinking that's producing those actions, that these 5 different, it's just like the emotions in, oh, what's that, the movie Inside Out, the Pixar movie Inside Out, that everybody's taking their turns driving the bus. And then when we have awareness to, like, our inner child is trying to tell us something, or our inner teenager is desiring something, our inner parent is trying to keep us safe for something, which is like different from the ego and like the mind that we're in now versus our higher self and our intuition that's within us, that it can get. This is why journaling can be really important, why meditation is important, why spending time with yourself trying to figure out like I always just keep thinking of the Mo William book 2, like Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, like who's driving the bus. And again, I give credit to my therapist for asking me that question. It's like, who's driving your bus right now, Megan? Who's making the decisions about your present self, that about your future self? Is that who you want to be making the decisions? Because like, I don't want my inner angry teenager who doesn't feel like they've had any freedom, that is longing for something, to be making decisions about how I'm spending my money, versus my inner child who's making decisions about what I'm eating, versus my inner parent who's giving me a hard time every time I feel like I don't measure up to something, versus my ego who is just telling me all these ways that everything could go wrong, and actually this is the safest course of action if we did that, versus my higher self that wants to kind of like flip the card table that's inside my head and my heart and be able to be like, listen, like all your guys' feelings are valid, but like this is what's best for us right now and in the future. And having that awareness and kind of picking those apart or this incredible can be an incredible component of therapy, can be an incredible component of personal development. Dr. Shafali has some incredible parenting books that really help break all of this down, and how all these voices bring attention to the healing that needs to be done within us. And how it sounds very chaotic and it can be overwhelming in the beginning, but as you start to spend more time with yourself, you can then start to address these voices like, oh man, do you know what? My inner child would love to wear purple today. And in fact, they would also love to get purple ice cream. And that would make my inner child so happy. And having my Polly Pockets out on my bedside table is something that my inner child just like loves and adores. And you know what? My inner teenager does want to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning reading a book because I was never allowed to. But I can choose to do that. And my inner parent would like really does want us to sit down at the table every night for dinner because that's an important core value and experience in my childhood that my inner parent is wanting us to have in adulthood, but also to give to our children for that, versus my ego who's still trying to get us to take the safe route and making all these safe decisions for things and feel very uncomfortable when I'm doing something new, versus my higher self that's just super proud of us for taking care of ourselves in the past, the present, and the future. So this is where a lot of that like internal work and this exploration really come from, where you go from this very chaotic noise to more of an understanding and having more compassion for yourself and understanding and be able to support it through that way. I think another level of spiritual awakening is when you realize that like you are connected to something bigger. And this is the very different journey for a lot of people. It's recognizing that there's a difference between religion and spirituality, but how they can often be really interconnected. But it's just having the recognition within yourself that there is no more denying to you, to your heart, to your soul, to your mind that we're connected to something bigger. I think this really starts to show up with people with coincidences, and they're like, "Oh man, like I was just talking about that." Oh man, I just keep seeing 11:11 like on their microwave. Every time I look at my phone, it's 11:11." Or you will think of somebody and then they'll text you. Like these aren't they're coincidences, but in the spiritual awakening world, what we call them is synchronicities. They are a breadcrumbs to let you know that you are connected to something bigger and guiding you on a path. They're all clues to what feels good into this awareness. But I think it's just having that awareness so you're like, oh hot damn. Like something just happened to me that I cannot ignore anymore, that I am connected to something bigger. Whatever that may be for you, whatever word it may be, but just having that realization that in your heart is for that. I think another level of spiritual awakening is recognizing that this might sting a bit, but I also don't think it would come as a surprise that you're the common denominator. That everything that's either going really shitty or going really great in your life, that you are it's because of you. It's not anything external. You want it to be, but it's not. That you are responsible for everything that's going on in your life. And this can come at different levels and it comes in different times. Mine came as a form of a panic attack when I had a day home, realizing that it's like nothing was really bad. Like nothing was great, nothing was super bad, but nothing was really good. And I wasn't happy with any level of my life whatsoever. And I had a panic attack with the realization that I'm like, hot damn, it's me. It's all me. This is me. This is my mindset. This is how I'm thinking about things. Oh my God, there's voices in my head. Like I got 4 of these spiritual awakenings in that one moment. And then ended up laying on the floor with kids crawling all over me, trying to not drown on the air of this planet that I chose to be on at this time. Because you are. And like with that is it come and it's the beautiful line from Spider-Man that is like with great power becomes great responsibility. That I had this realization that if I'm the common denominator, that I can't play victim to that anymore, and that it's my responsibility to make any change that I want or that I desire. And that I'm not going to change anybody. I can't keep waiting for people around me to change or circumstances to change. It's me that needs to change. I'm the catalyst. I'm the cause. I'm the root. I'm the seed. Like whatever metaphor you want to use for it. Like you're the problem, but you're also the solution. And I think that that spiritual awakening really comes in these two ties because there's that part of it. You're like, oh my God, I'm the victim to everything. I've created all this mess. Anything that's bad that's happening in my life that I don't want, it's my fault. There's so many stuff. But then on the flip side of that is like, oh my God, I am so powerful. I was just thinking about that person and then that person popped in. Like every time I say something out loud, it happens within 24 hours. Like I can just journal about it as though it's actually happening. And then, hot damn, it happens. As 444 goes by on the car and the license plate. And then you recognize that those signs really start to mean something. They're for you, that you have the power to do that. That this is like deliberate manifestation. That when you realize you're like, no, I'm the common denominator, but I can do something about it. And that's incredible. Then I think you get to the spiritual awakening where you start manifesting the tools to be able to help control the flow of energy. So lots of the times you'll get like the crystal girlies, you'll get into crystals, essential oils will start to be a part of your life, an oracle or a tarot deck will find you. You'll start to read books like You Were a Badass by Jen Sincero. You'll think of money as an energy. You'll start listening to different podcasts. Your weird friend starts to do Reiki. You start to recognize how people might feel a little bit different than they did before. That you start manifesting all of these tools into your life to help you understand, control, and do something with energy. With energy. And then you have the spiritual awakening, or like, again, not in order, but then there's the spiritual awakening of realizing that everybody's a psychic. That we all have these clairs, these abilities, the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, the clairsentience, the knowing that you can interpret the energy that it's around you by hearing it, by seeing it, by knowing it. When someone says something and you're like, that does not feel true at all, even though those are the words coming in your mouth, that does not make any sense. That there's like a clear, like there's clear sentience, like there's knowing. Or somebody asks you like, oh, I can't find this paperwork. You're like, man, I'm pretty sure it's just like shoved in on the side of a cabinet somewhere. You can feel it, you can know it, you're there. Like you're interpreting the energy that it's around you, and the time doesn't have anything to do with it. Which is another level of spiritual awakening, is recognizing that time's essentially a construct. That all we have is this present moment, this awareness of where we are now, this capability to move through time and space deliberately, intentionally, to be able to find things, to be able to receive messages, to be able to embody things, gain instructions, have insight, have questions answered, have a whole other level of healing. Like how cool, like, yeah. I get that like some of this stuff is just so weird and it's really bizarre to even say it out loud. But there's also this like, oh, like that's what, oh shit, that is what that is. I remember having my realization that I had psychic abilities. A friend of mine was talking about, remember we were in the library and I had run into her and she was talking about how she went to school with somebody who'd passed away in a house fire. And I'm like, did he look like this? She's like, yeah, did you know him? I'm like, no. And I'm like, was the house like this? And she's like, yeah, you must have known him. I'm like, no, I didn't. Oh, I think I see dead people. Because as she was telling this story, I was visualizing it so strongly. And I could see the communication from this dude, him trying to say something, like trying to mime something, get a message to me, but also knowing that I just thought I had a super vivid imagination because I'm a reader and a writer and I can see movies in my head. I'm like, yeah, that's one part of it. But the other part of it is like, well, I can see other people's movies in their head and also be able to use that ability to be able to move through this world in an entirely different way, knowing that everybody's skill set and capabilities and even the desire to have those capabilities is different. There's also the spiritual awakening of understanding that everybody around you is a reflection of you. That the things that you love about the people around you are you. That the things that you don't like about people around you are also you. That everybody is this mirror, which can be really frustrating, but also a really wonderful guidance system on how to navigate this world. Like if you think of who's pissing you off the most right now, like it's like thinking of like what's making you mad about that. And then having that personal awareness to be like, okay, but like and questioning the curiosity to be like, well, where am I doing that right now? Maybe to myself, maybe to my family, the people around me. Like, where am I mimicking that same behavior? Because we're all the same energy. We're all the same thing. Everybody has the same inherent rights to love and life and wealth that you have. And I mean like everybody, which can be really difficult to have that concept to grasp because there's so much of us that is conditioned into thinking that we only receive those things if people behave a certain way. And that's this like level of expansion and peace and forgiveness. I think there's also the spiritual awakening where you realize that there's like masculine and feminine energy. That there's the masculine energy of logic and work and doing and output and hustle and just a touch of control. And then there's the feminine energy that's intuition and rest and nourishment and rhythms that when you can tap into the power of having balanced feminine and masculine energy, regardless of the gender that you either identify with or have at birth, that because I don't like that doesn't matter in terms of the energies that we have within us, that we all have this capability and awareness of leading life with either more feminine energy or more masculine energy. It's knowing that all of these spiritual awakenings have a spectrum, that there's so many teachers with all of them. I think there's also the spiritual awakening of your worth and what that actually feels like for you. That you can read about it, you can listen to all these podcasts about it, you can see these creators that talk about, oh, you'll get this when you're worthy, but it's like what that actually feels like and means like to you. I think there's a spiritual awakening of recognizing that death is a gift and it can be the one of the shittiest lessons to learn, that like letting go and having that transition from one level of life to a different aspect of life is a beautiful art of living, that it gives us a perspective of what's important immediately or not. I think there's a spiritual awakening too of recognizing where you are healing out of habit. And I think that I can, so my ego is presenting with this voice inside my head and like being able to visualize and see people that I know listening to this, watching this at home or in the car and being like, well, are those actual awakenings? Like, this is a level of awareness, but like awareness and being awake. And it's not like the label of like being woke, which I think is funny because I think anybody who was truly woke would never say that about themselves because I don't have the different conversation. That when your consciousness and your awareness expands, that that is a level of awakening, that you're seeing the world and the way that you live in a different way. I think it's also having there's an like the spiritual awakening that comes up now is the lesson of behaviors, that so many of our behaviors and our thoughts are truly just like preconditioned beliefs, that we can change that we have the capacity to change that. I think one another level of spiritual awakening is also when you get to the point where you can't deliberately manifest anymore and you don't have control over what's around you and you do have to truly surrender, which means letting go of how it's going to happen, like to creator, to this higher power, to God, whatever you may go into. And I think there's another level of spiritual awakening where you step into your authenticity, where it doesn't matter to you anymore what other people think. This is important to your heart. And you kind of like shed some stuff and reprogram some subconscious and work on your central nervous system to be able to feel safe enough to be authentic. But regardless of whether it comes with safety or not, that you are authentic. It's knowing that you can't control really anything around you, but you can control how you react to it. And then I think there's that spiritual awakening where you realize that you're in complete co-creation with God. Then even though I can't, or you can't, this is me personally, I can't deliberately manifest anything anymore. But it's because I'm not at the level that I've been through the lesson of being able to deliberately manifest and work through energy. But now I'm at the level where I'm being called into something higher, something that like I don't think I can even see yet. The path before me has disappeared because I am in complete partnership with God, with Creator, into what I can do, like what's the service I have. I meditate on this every single day, looking for and asking for instruction about how to move today, which I do with inspired action, knowing that if nothing comes through, that it will eventually. That you just get into this phase of total surrender, of like not being able to control anything anymore, but also recognizing that even though you can't control anything, doesn't mean that you're not safe and that it's not all working in your favor anyway. Which I think is another spiritual awakening of having this complete trust that everything is working in your favor, especially when it doesn't feel like it, which is wildly illogical. There's so many different levels to this healing journey, and it's this beautiful unfolding for things that we can all be in different parts, that as we speak about this and as you listen, that you can probably see it and other people are like, oh yeah, like this person has this but they don't quite have this, or like I have this, or I never thought about that before. Is that even a thing? Can I oh, I'm curious about this level. Tell me more. Spiritual awakening is this is that pattern, man. That spiral staircase. Where is it taking you? How beautiful is it to see other things? And I think that's the thing too. Is the level of awakening is like when you do understand that everything's working for you, that you do start to see like it's like there's positive and peace in like everything. That you can be firm and kind about how you think, about how you move, about your energy. You have these boundaries in place to have you be able to move through the world knowing where your worth feels like and the connections that you have and how powerful you truly are and how much responsibility comes with that. Just so much to think about, isn't it? It's amazing to see where this journey is going to go for us. I hope you enjoyed this very rambly, very sporadic, very entertaining take on spiritual awakening. My name is Megan, and I'll see you soon.